Let me ask you something real quick. If you fell into a freezing Alaskan river right now, no raft, no supplies, no phone, no rescue team, what would be your very first move? Because Cole Harper, 34 years old, adventure photographer from Denver, Colorado, didn't get a choice. One second, he was shooting rapids on the Alaskan River with his camera strapped to his chest, adrenaline pumping, living his best life. And the next second, his raft clipped a submerged rock, flipped like a toy, and that 35-degree Fahrenheit glacial water swallowed him whole. And guys, most people don't understand what cold water immersion actually does to your body. It's not the drowning that kills you first. It's the shock, the involuntary gasp, the muscle seizure, the panic that hits your brain faster than you can process it. But Cole fought that current for 300 yards, 3 full football fields of raging white water before he grabbed a tree root on the riverbank and pulled himself out, gasping and shaking and soaked to the bone. And when he finally sat up and looked around, the raft was completely gone, supplies gone, satellite phone gone, everything gone, and all he had left was the torn clothes on his back, a waterproof camera, a small folding knife on his belt, 60 miles of Alaskan wilderness between him and the nearest town, and a temperature that was dropping fast. So Cole did what survivors do. He talked out loud to keep his brain focused, and he said, "Survival rule number 1, get warm or get dead." And he started moving immediately, because wet clothes in cold weather are basically a death sentence the moment you stop moving. Stripping dry bark from the inside of fallen logs, gathering dead leaves from under pine trees where the rain couldn't reach, and then he pulled out that cracked waterproof camera and positioned the broken lens at exactly the right angle over his pile of dry bark and held it perfectly still for 12 straight minutes, soaking wet, hands shaking, hypothermia already creeping in at the edges. 12 minutes of holding that lens completely still until the thinnest little wisp of smoke appeared, and Cole blew on it so gently, so carefully, like his entire life depended on that one tiny breath of air, because it did. And that wisp became a flame, and that flame became a fire, and Cole Harper laughed out loud, completely alone in the Alaskan wilderness, because when you're fighting for your life, every single small win counts. But the night wasn't over yet, because around midnight he heard heavy footsteps on the riverbank, slow and deliberate and getting closer, and he grabbed his knife and turned around, and standing 20 feet away was an 800-pound Alaskan brown bear just staring at him. And Cole's brain went completely blank, like a TV with no signal, but his training took over, and he stood up slowly, spread his arms wide, made direct eye contact, and in the calmest, deepest voice he could manage, he said, "Hey, bear, I'm not food. I'm just trying to get home." And for what felt like a full lifetime, those two stood there staring at each other in the dark until the bear finally turned around and walked back into the trees. And Cole didn't move for 5 full minutes after that, just stood there with his arms still spread and his heart pounding so hard he could hear it. Day 2, he made the decision to follow the river downstream, because rivers always lead to people eventually. Walking 8 straight hours through dense Alaskan forest, eating wild berries he recognized from his training, stopping every hour to check his feet for frostbite, building a debris shelter that second night from pine branches and river mud, sleeping maybe 4 broken hours before the cold woke him up again. But by day 3, Cole was genuinely running on empty, legs cramping badly, fingers completely numb, vision starting to blur at the edges, classic signs of hypothermia shutting his body down slowly and quietly. And he knew it. He knew exactly what was happening to him. But he kept telling himself out loud, "You do not stop walking. You do not sit down. The moment you sit down is the moment you don't get back up." So he kept going, one foot in front of the other, for 3 more hours on a body that was begging him to quit. And then he heard it, faint and far away, but completely unmistakable, the sound of a motorboat engine somewhere on the river. And Cole ran. He actually ran on legs that had been walking through wilderness for 3 days straight, crashing through the tree line, branches whipping his face, roots catching his boots, stumbling and falling and getting back up again. And he burst through onto the riverbank just in time to see a small fishing boat rounding the bend. And he screamed and waved both arms over his head and jumped up and down like a man completely out of his mind, which honestly, after 3 days alone in the Alaskan wild, he kinda was.
and the boat slowed and stopped, and an old Alaskan fisherman with a weathered face and a flannel shirt looked at this wild-eyed, mud-covered, half-frozen man on the riverbank and said, "Son, you look like you wrestled the river and almost lost." And Cole collapsed to his knees right there and laughed until he cried and said, "Almost, almost." The doctors in Fairbanks told him later he was maybe 6 hours away from full hypothermia shutdown. 6 hours, that's how close it was. And when the reporters asked Cole what kept him going, he said something I think about all the time. "The river wanted to take me, but I wasn't done yet. I still had pictures to take." And that right there is everything. Find your reason, hold on to it with everything you have, and keep moving. Because Cole Harper made that decision every single minute for 3 days straight in one of the most brutal environments on Earth, and he made it home. This is the Dead Man's River, only on Edge of Survival.